the process starts, how it would start, what's the first step? Can you give us a roadmap?
Yes, well, the first step is that at 4 a.m. everybody stops shooting. No more rockets, no more UAVs, no more shelling, no more Air Force bombings. Everything stops at 4 a.m. local time in Beirut.
Okay.
The second thing, so when people wake up in the morning, they can go to school. They know that things are going to be quiet. People can go to work. They can move their cars. I was in Beirut and there are cars parked everywhere because of the fear of a bombardment. So we can at least start the process of going back to normal life. But the next thing that has to happen is that the Lebanese Armed Forces, the LAF, has to start organizing itself to deploy across the country in areas that it hasn't been in a long time. And that will take time. And so the Israelis are going to maintain their positions on the ground in the south until the Lebanese army is able to deploy all the way to those locations. Instead of happening all at once, it will happen in a gradual basis. Mm-hmm. So over several days and weeks, the Lebanese army will start deploying, and as they deploy, the Israeli military will withdraw. So they will not all withdraw at the same time after 60 days. On the contrary, over the first few weeks, you will have the first Israeli forces withdrawing back into Israel, and then as the army deploys into more areas, they will redeploy again. In the meantime, though, the Lebanese army has to do more than just deploy to the south and create positions and build bases, but they also have to deploy across the Litani to make sure that Hezbollah is moving north, away from the Litani area, north of the Litani, and so that as people start the slow process of going back home in the south, that Hezbollah is moving north and the weapons are moving north, and the Lebanese army is able to provide security to the people throughout and for the country throughout the south.
There's a paragraph in the agreement that talks about securing the borders, not only the borders in the south. So we are talking about the crossing, so port and airport, and the border with Syria.
Correct.
Who is going to do that, and who is going to monitor that? Because the devil is in the details, Mr. Hooksteen. So can you explain a little bit?
This moment right now is Lebanon's government is supposed to stand up and say, we are taking control of the country. Not the south, but the country. It is normal for the state security services, for its customs and the internal security force and the general directorate for security to take control of the borders, of all borders and all crossings. If weapons are coming into the country, they should be coming through authorized means to the authorized security services. And so that is something that the government is going to start to do. Not everything can happen on day one. And that's why we've established a mechanism where the United States will chair that mechanism with France to help the security services deploy where they need to, assert control over territory that they have to, and make sure that the borders of the country are there. This is a moment for Lebanon to be able to assert its sovereignty across the country, not only from foreign invaders, but from local ones as well.
I want to ask about the committee, but I want to tell you, you know better than me now, Lebanon, that the army, the LAF, doesn't have the enough personnel to deploy in the south, on the borders. How are you going to help Lebanon? You know also about the economic situation, so how are you going to proceed on it?
I have said multiple times during this negotiation that the international community has a responsibility towards Lebanon, and that is to support the LAF financially, with financial resources, with equipment, and as the LAF recruits, and it will have to recruit additional forces, additional soldiers, they have to train them, they have to equip them, and they have to pay them. So those are things that we have to help with, both financially and with the technical training. And so yes, the LAF will have to grow, and it will have to take responsibility. I have met with several of the generals at the LAF leadership, and I know that they are capable and willing. The government is going to have to give the authorization and the instruction to the LAF to go and do their job across the country, and I believe they will. So we, the international community, will be there for the LAF, but it doesn't stop with the LAF. You mentioned correctly, we have to support Lebanon's economy. and to build back the economy, not with charity, not with aid, not only with humanitarian assistance, but with bringing about investment, bringing about the kind of reforms in the government that will bring the international community to support a growing economy that brings prosperity to Lebanon.
Are you aligned with your partners on this, helping the LAF, supporting Lebanon?
Absolutely.
Okay. Do we expect a conference, an international conference?
I would expect that, though I don't know about conference, but in the coming days, weeks, I think that we are going to try to do something as quickly as possible to work with like-minded countries in the region, as well as in Europe, in Asia, here in the Americas, to support Lebanon's economy, and of course the international institutions such as the World Bank and other development assistance.
Going back to the committee, and here are the details that we need to understand. You will be chairing this committee that will monitor the implementation of this deal. Will we have military personnel, US military personnel on the ground? How you will monitor that?
The president was clear that we are not deploying combat troops into South Lebanon. That is not happening.
Okay.
And also we're not in combat at the moment. We are going to have, our military will step up its efforts to help the Lebanese army in building its capacity and making sure that there is information flow, so that if a violation is happening somewhere, they know how to address it, and that they have the information they need to go and find it, locate it, monitor what's happening there, dismantle infrastructure if they have to, and they'll get all the support that the United States can have. And we'll have some folks at our embassy that are able to work with the LAF on this. But we'll also work with France on this committee, who's also will have a dedicated support, and the rest of our allies who have pledged support for the LAF. So this is going to be a group effort, and whatever the LAF needs, we're going to be there. But we will be watching very, very carefully. This is cannot be the same as it was in 2006, where there were agreements made and implementation was zero. The international community is going to be watching every step of the way with transparency and with folks on the ground that are going to look at what is happening to make sure that Hezbollah and other terrorist organizations, if they try, will be removed to the north and not be allowed to rebuild infrastructure.
They won't be based in Lebanon, the military personnel?
We're going to have to figure out the details of who is where, but they will not be deployed as combat troops in South Lebanon.
Going back to this, because you will receive complaint from Israel if there is a violation, and you will receive a complaint from the Lebanese if there is a violation. So when you receive this, you go and monitor and check the area. This is how it will work?
That is correct. The Lebanese army will go and check, and we will transmit information back and forth on a real-time basis with no delays, and we will be watching both the information that we're not just giving the information, but making sure that it is being addressed immediately so it doesn't develop into a bigger threat.
Okay. Mr. Hookstein, you know Lebanon very, very well, and you know the LAF cannot be deployed, cannot be enabled without a political will.
Correct.
Okay, we don't have, Lebanon doesn't have now a president. We have a caretaker government. So you were trying to mediate and push the Lebanese leader to elect a president. Are you going to follow up on that? How things stand here?
I think that we're going to this is the moment of opportunity to elect a president.
Okay.
Many in Lebanon have said there will be no selection of a new president until after the ceasefire. Well, there's now a ceasefire. The moment is now to select a president and to put the government, a new government that is not in caretaker status, but it is confirmed as a new government. And to do so as a government that truly represents the interests of Lebanon and not any other outside interests.
What about the Iranian role?
I do not understand why the Iranians need to have a role in the government of Lebanon. I think the government of Lebanon should represent the people of Lebanon.
Okay, I want to ask a question that some info were circulating about a role for the Syrian government, the current Syrian government, on the Lebanese and the Syrian borders. Are you aligned with some of your allies who are proposing that?
Look, the Syrian government should take steps to secure their border. That is not not breaking news. Syria should make sure that its territory is not used as a highway of drugs and guns and weapons smuggling in all directions. Ultimately, that is going to be part of the effort to make sure that there's not a rearming and that Lebanon can live as a normal society, a normal country that is responsible for its own fate.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, in his speech today, signified that he has a free movement, freedom of movement in Lebanon. Can you confirm that?
I can confirm that the agreement, as President Biden stated today, says that both countries, Lebanon and Israel, have the right to self-defense in case of an immediate threat or significant threat in accordance with international law. That is the right of both countries. They don't surrender that right during this agreement. Now, what has to happen is implementation has to be full and comprehensive, and we are going to make sure, so I don't believe that we'll be in a situation where that has to be tested.